I don't know about you, but I find quite a lot of the sampling process, about the final third, to be quite an unmusical one. Obviously, you need inspiration to spawn these sounds in the first place, but intent quickly becomes computer-based administrative tasks like labelling files, setting up your region loops, and programming the sampler. And only after all of these things are done can you finally reveal if Frankenstein made a monster. And sometimes it really does surprise you when you realise that what you first thought would be great actually sounds terrible. Some of my favourite sound palettes originate from items or instruments that I don't really know how to play, starting with Thrumming Textures a couple of weeks ago, where we took a couple of guitars, played them one note at a time, and then had them mapped to a keyboard, an instrument that I am very proficient in. I wanted to question this notion of musicality, i.e., does being musically proficient in an instrument make for a better musical sound, or is musical direction and vision a more important component? So this week, we're going to be doing a sample library of my viola behind. I've called this library Soft String Spurs because I want it to have that feeling of growing from a single note, a single seed, if you will. Now I'm going to record 4 bows to a note, and I'm going to record it diatonically like I did with the Thrumming Textures library, so it's a whole tone scale basically. And what I want to achieve with this is not only a really beautiful kind of core sound that you could use dry or with some reverb, but then I also want to add a second dimension, which is going to have the delays and the slides and the harmonics and the tremolo, and I'm going to show you how I've programmed that when I get round to programming it. I'm going to record with an AKG C451B. I'm going to try and record this about just over a metre away from the instrument. That way it still has that closeness to it, but it's not so close that you can, hear the rosin scraping against the strings. I'm also going to use a couple of AKG C214s just to give a little bit of width in the room. As you can probably tell, I'm in quite a small home studio setup here, but it should give us some options if we want to stretch it further with delays and things like that. Okay, it's been a couple of days, but I'm so excited to show this to you because I've been playing it the last couple of hours, and I'm so inspired by it, and that's, I'm hoping to go into TV, film, TV type stuff, and I really do get inspired by hearing sounds like this, and I hope you will too. So if you download this is what you'll see first. We've got the instruments pane, which has 3 EXS instruments currently. If anyone wants to make a contact version, please do. I had a contact version made for my Thrumming Textures library a couple of weeks ago, so I'm really grateful for that because it means more people can use it and share it. So there's the core library, Soft String Spurs core, and then there's the Harmonics and the Swells libraries. Of course, we'll go through this in detail now. As I said in the film before, there are 4 dynamic layers to this. So if we have a look here they all are. We've got level 1, level 2, level 3 and level 4. So if you're programming this into your own sampler, make sure you can use something like the mod wheel or something similar so that you can fade between the dynamic layers. For those of you using EXS24, I've done that for you already. You'll also notice a non-NR and NR folder. That's because I'm new to Isotope's RX7. I love it so far. I don't really know how to use it though. So I've left the non-noise reduced files in there, and then in the noise reduced files you'll see I've also got the harmonics, which are just 4 open harmonics, and then the swells as well. And so of course we will go into depth. So this is the Logic project. As I say, it's taken a while, but here we are. So as you'll notice, level 1 has just 1 recording, and then I've got a C451B close, about a metre above the viola, and then we've got a pair of C214s. So a little bit of a range. The way I've mixed it together, I've had the close mic as the main mic, and then I've had the stereo pair just a little bit lower. I did really appreciate it though when it came to adding the other layers, because I wanted to give that sense of width as well that was really brought out by being able to pan it in different directions without losing any of that stereo image. And all I've really done here is, again, I think I know the piano book community by now. I've left it fairly, I was going to say bland, but I'll say neutral. So a little bit of compression with the Renaissance compressor by Waves, and the Renaissance EQ as well, just to sweeten it up a little bit. And then I've added some reverb as well. So this is the Resultant Library. We've got 3 individual instruments, although I would recommend you select all of them and use them all simultaneously. But I've left them individualized so that you can do what I'm sure you will do with them. But let's just start off with the core library. Now, if I open up the EXS24, on this little panel down here, you can see that I've got sample select via velocity, and the source of that is the mod wheel. So for those of you who maybe haven't created libraries like this before, where you're actually cycling through dynamic layers, in this sort of bank here of recordings, you'll notice that if I go to velocity layer here, I've got a range. So the first note will only be triggered by 1 to 17, second one 18 to 73, etc. And then by mapping this to the mod wheel, you're activating every sample every time, and then it just sort of dynamically fades between them and does so via this amount here, and you can decide how much sort of overlap or crossfade there is. Of course, I've set up region loops as well, so if you hold down a chord, it will play forever in theory. The other thing I'd recommend sort of before going into this is I recommend putting a little bit of reverb and delay on as well. It's got this type of sound to it already, but it doesn't hurt just to add a little bit extra. So I'm using Echo Boy here by Sound Toys, and I'm using the coveted Space Echo saturation here. So here we go. This is the very first library. So you can see really, really dynamic there. The first 2 layers were recorded with a mute, so they sound really quite soft and kind of mournful almost. And then as it progresses up, you can see that we're opening up into the unmuted sound. I'm really happy with this. I think it does everything I wanted it to do. I think my favourite is still level 2 actually, which is interesting. I think there's something really lovely about the soft sound, but again, I wanted to give a breadth of dynamic range so that whatever you're using it in, hopefully you can find something useful in it. Next, I want to move on to the harmonics, and this is the biggest surprise for me because it's just 4 samples. I'm not even going to talk about it, I'm just going to play it. I absolutely love this sound. I don't know what it is. Just a single harmonic. I did a little bit of stretching and reversing and things like that. But yeah, you've got 4 samples that each overlap each other in places. And I don't know, it just works, Finally, we've got the Swells Library. And this was a kind of late addition, to be honest. I wanted this just to kind of help in those moments where you're at fortissimo and you've got the harmonics and you've got the core library going, but you just need a bit of kind of, just a little bit extra somewhere. This is that, really. So it's an interesting one. Again, I'd recommend using some delay. Again, I've got the Echo Boy on there as well. So just a quick note before I play you everything all together. With the harmonics and the swells, because there's only one dynamic layer, what I've done here is I've set up volume to be triggered via the velocity via CC21. I'm sure many of you use Spitfire products, I certainly do, and that's why I have this set to CC21. So it's a separate volume controller, if you will, to the core library, which has CC1, the mod wheel set up, and then I also use CC11 for general volume. So let's have a look and see how it all sounds together. I'd be really interested to see what you think of this library. It's available to download for free down below, so you really have absolutely nothing to lose. When I first posed the question at the beginning of the film about whether having musical proficiency is more important than having musical vision or direction, I hope I've answered the question by showing how beautiful those harmonics sound. I think that's a sound that didn't actually use that much proficiency, but somehow generated a beautiful sound when applied through the sampling hack that is, plugging it into a keyboard effectively. Just a quick kind of bit of housekeeping. We just passed over 100 subscribers, which is great because it means I have a custom URL, youtube.com/DanKeyMusic. I plan to do a lot more videos like this. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to show you a library I've made called Pots and Pads, constructed just from kitchenware items to prove once again that you don't need to be a musician or have expensive instruments in order to create your own sounds. Via this new link, it would be easier than ever for you to share it with friends or anyone who you think this could be useful to. So please do, and I'll see you in the next one.